So Zato is currently, debatably, but like, you know, come on, the worst character in Guilty Gear Strive, and until someone overthrows him, he will have held this title for the longest amount of time, because Faust had it for exactly a year, and Pot had it for a little bit over a year. Zato will have had it from, at the very least, August 24th to October 31st at the time of recording this, if not longer. He's been in a pretty terrible spot, and despite, you know, awareness of developers and attempts made to quote-unquote fix him, he is not really functional still. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about how we got here, right? How we got to the state that he's in right now, potential like solutions and stuff we can do, and most notably, he doesn't have his new move yet, so I'm going to talk about possibilities for that as well. So Season 2 Zato was, despite my downplaying, a high-tier character with some matchup problems, mostly like characters you have to approach, like Chaos or whatever, right? Or characters that could kill Eddie really easily or rush him down a lot, right? Despite how loudly I complained, other than May, I'm sticking my guns on that one, all of his matchups could be won if, you know, you outplayed hard enough or got lucky, blah, 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 right? Like, realistically. And also, Zato is the type of character that is actually really good at overcoming bad matchups because he has so many different like tools, right? And he can kind of overwhelm your opponent with all the different stuff you're doing because he is one of the hardest matchups in the game to learn, obviously, right? There's a lot of stuff you have to know against him. And so if you just kind of hit them with enough smoke and mirrors, like it's kind of impossible to be ready for everything. So being able to win that way is a really, really strong trait for a character. But, I mean, just like in every Guilty Gear game, he's really polarizing because he has really, really big strengths and really, really big weaknesses. His biggest strengths are that he's really threatening on block is, I'd say, a first one. Because, for example, most characters will be, you know, minus on their 2S, maybe have like a frame trap option. Something like this, maybe, right? But Zato is able to do this, and then there's RPS there on whether the pierce happens, and then there's RPS on once you block the pierce, right? But he has the ability to pretty safely start his offense from like a poke and stuff like that, right? As opposed to like having to do stuff like this, or like make them block a close slash and stuff like that, right? So huge, huge strength, especially in tournament. It's like not having to hit somebody necessarily to win is a really, really big deal, for sure. He has obviously amazing offense once you start your own con. You know, you do this, you do this, you do this mix up, right? Blah, 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 right? Or like maybe you like combo into a throw, but then if they jump the throw, Frog covers you, right? Like his offense is obviously amazing, right? He is able to continue that offense when he breaks the wall with super. Right? So you would do Sword Super or Amorphous if you have full Eddie, right? And after that, you just do this and then do another mix-up, right? While having positive, so if they block this, you have enough meter to do another Sword Super, blah, 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 right? So yeah, offense good. Also, he is one of, if not the best character in the game against burst, because every single normal that he could do, you could just cancel into this, and it would be burst. Which means, even if he doesn't have any, because in general, like, he was good against burst because you could outspace burst by doing combos like this. Because their burst would just whiff, right? But also, if you were, like, right in their face, and you were to do, like that, it would beat their burst, which it now does not, right? So yeah, I mean, he's cheap, right? Like, it's Zato. He's also really hard to anti-air because of flight. His jump H is absolutely one of the best air normals in the game. It's also uniquely level 3, so you can hit it from like pretty high up. Oh, let me not counter hit. You can hit it from really high up and still combo into 2K2D, which is 2K2D parentheses Zato, right? So you 2K2D them and you're doing like all this, right? So it's great, right? So yeah, I mean, it's Zato, right? He's cheap. It's, you know. His weaknesses are that he can't convert his jabs. Like this jab is +1 on hit, and then that's it, right? So that's pretty bad, right? Because most characters in this game can convert their jabs. He also can't convert his S normals. That's not a combo. If we make him do, I think it's this. Yeah. So my 2S is -7 on hit, which is pretty bad, right? His S normals also have some big hurtbox problems, right? So if we turn that on, this is his far slash. Far slash is also like 38 total or something. Like his button has a lot of recovery, has a really bad hurtbox. They kind of like power crept non-disjointed normals out of the game, but Zato's only disjoint is still 5H and 6P, right? Yeah, that's pretty bad. And then on top of that, he is not getting any reward off this move either, right? Like, this isn't comboing all the time. Like, you need to have dash momentum and be close, and not hit this move at max range. So if you hit this move like here, you're not getting anything off of it, right? Same with this move, right? You would have to be like here. Oh, that didn't even work. Great, right? And there's even times where, like, if you hit someone's fuzzy jump, right? That didn't combo, right? So I can't even, like, confirm my close slash that well and stuff like that, right? It's bad. So he can't convert any of that. He has long recovery on these normals too. Like, they're easy to whiff punish, but like his 2S is really big, so it probably should have long recovery. This one having really long recovery is a little more questionable because they buffed 2x. They buffed 2S's hurtbox a while back, so 2S is honestly a great move. Main complaint is far slash, but I mean, regardless, it's Zato. He's cheap. I'll live, you know. But yeah, he has really bad conversions. He has the worst 2D in the game. Blah blah blah. But he's still good. I mean, I won tournaments with this character. Many other people won tournaments with this character, right? It's Zato. So now we gotta talk about how we got here, right? What we're gonna talk about first is system changes and power creep before we even talk about a nerf Zato, because I think in season 3, like if 3.0 launched and they didn't nerf Zato, he still would not have been like anywhere near as good as people think he would have been, because overall I think that the system hurt him a lot. So first of all, talk about the elephant in the room. Nowhere in the patch notes did they actually say that this would happen. They did say it for YRC. So they did say that this wouldn't happen anymore, which to me is lame, but whatever, right? But also that nerf is nowhere near as big of a deal as burst. I don't know if I put this here or not, but regardless, burst beating BTL is huge. But also, even if that weren't the case, like we said, you can just burst these types of combos now. Like, you can't, you know. In Season 2, it's very common to try and outspace somebody's burst and stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty bad. Not a fan of that. His whole thing was kind of being good on block as we went over, right? And because of that, everybody in the game having Wild Assault is not great for him, right? Because now, like, oh, it was like, oh, wow, I blocked Zato from here, and he's still threatening because of Pierce, right? But now, do stuff like that, right? Or like, you know, oh, I'm +3. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? And it kind of diminishes his uniqueness and his strength and blah, 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 right? And these characters, like, basically every character in the game is now plus on block from really far pokes, and they don't have all of Zato's million weaknesses along with that, right? And also, it makes all of them convert better, which means Zato's conversions being bad just stings even worse, right? And before you're asking, no, Zato still gets nothing off of 2S. Invite Hell doesn't combo. Wild Assault doesn't combo. Nothing combos, right? I feel like this one is really big, and the devs kind of thought it would be the other way around, because they'd be like, oh, okay, if you run out of Eddie, right, then you'd be able to do stuff with Wild Assault to get Eddie back. But look how long Eddie takes to get back. And also, Zato's conversions with Wild Assault are miserable. This doesn't even work. Like, come on, bro. That's like my optimal Wild Assault combo. Command Grab doesn't even... Oh my god, it didn't combo. Command Grab doesn't even work. Like, it's bad, bro. So I feel like if that was the justification, they kind of completely missed the mark on it. Free burst for getting wall stuck means that slumping, which was a really big strategy for Zato, is now a lot worse. So look how much burst Soul gets. This used to be even more. It used to be, I believe, 25% burst for getting wall stuck. And a really common strategy with Zato before was you do something like... right? And then here, because you're at like 40-something meter, you would just slump and then do another mix-up so that you would build 50 meter and then get your super wall break, right? But now you're heavily discouraged from doing that because of them getting free burst, right? And also, Zato is not good against burst anymore. He's like, okay, I guess, sometimes, because you can do close slash rock. But generally, like, Zato lost most of his strength against burst, while characters like Mei and Ram have kept it. So, it's pretty bad. Burst being higher attack level means he's already weak. Burst punishes are even worse. So let's show what that looks like. If we do something like even just like... Like, you're doing this as your burst punish. That if you're lucky, right? His burst punishes are absolutely miserable. And this is after they nerfed the burst attack level in, I believe, 3.5. When 3.5 came out, he actually couldn't even do this. this would not be an air hit. So he got absolutely nothing for punishing a burst, because the burst would kill Eddie, right? Flex Shield is by far more useful versus Zato than any other character in the game, and no, I'm not explaining why. This character is doomed enough. And also, universally, as a last kind of fuck you, they reduce his command grab damage, because they reduce command grab damage universally, but Zato's command grab, as we'll see, has already been made kind of obsolete by the character nerfs. So, and it, even aside from that, it was the worst command grab in the game. It's only +7, and you're over here. Like, it's bad, right? So, making it do even less damage is, I think it does like 2 more damage than his throw now or something like that, right? Hopefully this will make a little bit of sense as to why I think just the system changes of Season 3 already hurt Zato a lot. Because a lot of the time I hear like, oh wow, he got nerfed because of he would be too good with the system, and I don't believe that that's true at all. Alright, so now let's get into the direct nerfs. So obviously, elephant in the room is they doubled the cooldown on Eddie. So Eddie now takes this long to come back. I'm making you watch all of it. Yeah, there you go. Very notably, it also means that if you command grab somebody, you get half Eddie back. When the whole point of the move is to get you full Eddie back. This just feels like they forgot, honestly. So that is easily the single biggest nerf they've ever given a character in this game. So that's already pretty big. Break the Law, lose to Burst. So the previously best character in the game against Burst now is not best character in the game against Burst. Max flight duration has been reduced by 50%, I believe. I think it went from like 90 frames to 60 frames, something like that, which is pretty big, but honestly, flight's kind of annoying, so I could, I get it. Y'all got it. One that really annoys me is that 5P and 2P now have travel time. So let's... This is the first frame 5P. Pretty small. And then this is what Zato's 5P actually is. His 5P is now in neutral effectively a 7-frame move, which is insane because he still doesn't convert off of it. Right? Like, I don't know, whatever, right? 2P is now an 8-frame move in a similar vein. The first 2 actives of the move are now really small. And it makes even less sense because if you were to compare his 5P to Faust 5P, Faust 5P is still a similar size to Zato's old 5P, and he can also convert off of it. Right? And even more egregious, Anji's 2P was already 5 frames compared to Zato's, which is 6. And in Season 3, they decided to let him convert off of it. You can even convert off multiple 2Ps like this. You could do like 4. Yeah, like this. Like, come on, dude. Right? And Anji's 2P, untouched. Meanwhile, Zato's 2P is now 8 frames, where Anji's 2P is 5, and he can convert off of it. It just makes no sense, dude. Anyway. This is not even mentioning even bigger outliers, such as Chaos 5K, where Chaos 5K is like the same size as Zato's jab, you still can't whiff punish it, and it is plus 10 million on block because it's Chaos, and he wall breaks off of it because he's Chaos. I don't get it, man. And then the last one I think most people forgot about, but they increased the wall damage on his 6H. And what that means is that it is harder for him to keep his opponent in the corner without slumping. And remember, they just nerfed slumping. So let's show what that looks like. Yeah, so because 2H is also 500 wall damage, 2H is a tool you use to do this as well, but they're both now 500 wall damage, so he doesn't have a 300 damage, like 300 wall damage move to reset opponents, which is really bad because of the slump thing. Also, them making his jab 7 frames means that he actually has maybe literally the worst punishes in the game on a lot of moves. For example, let's talk about Abba's Rekka, right? This also applies to Ram's Rekka. This doesn't punish. This move is -5, and this doesn't punish. On top of that, even if I did like have the ability to punish this, I wouldn't get anything off of it. So overall, with the whole Season 3 thing, the system is bad for him, and he also got hit with major nerfs. But on top of that, almost every other character in the game got way stronger, either through they use Wild Assault really well, right? And it like completely reinvents the character, like Mei, right? A new move, or just straight up buffs, right? A common theory at the time was that they shot Zato because they were going to give him a really like broken new move, right? Because they gave Ino, Mei, and Anji some pretty sizable nerfs in exchange for getting new moves, but it's now been a year and a month and no new move. So, at the time of recording this, at least. And no, the Eddie swap does not count as a new move, and I'm going to show you why. First of all, they said they were adding 6 new moves, and they added 6 new moves. It was Geo, Ino, Anji, Mei, Faust, Ram. But also, here, it's not even on the move list. Here, it's a little extra paragraph there at the bottom of Break the Law, right? But it's not even like, for example, if we look at Anji's move list, for example, his new move is also under his spin, right? But it's here, right? It has, first of all, it has its own name. It has like an indent here. It's a bullet point under this instead of just being a fuck. Like, yeah, okay, it's not a move. So yeah, he's kind of been a pretty miserable state ever since, and they have tried to give him some buffs, but they have not been enough because he's been the worst character for over a year straight. But let's talk about those buffs now. Alright, so real quick, let's go through their attempts at buffing Zato. 3.5, they gave Invite Hell 2 more frames of advantage, and that's it. Nice one, man. Not like he's getting anything off this. Not like he's hitting normal hit 5H into Invite Hell ever anyway, right? But like, yeah. In my opinion, he was actually even worse off this patch because they reduced the burst drain on Wild Assault, which means when Zato broke the wall with Wild Assault, he would not even lock his opponent out of burst for long enough because he's so weak to burst already, right? So, in my opinion, he was actually even worse off at 3.5. I think this is his lowest point since Season 1. Anyway, yeah, complete joke of a buff. It is nice in niche situations. I'm not saying it's useless, but like, come on, dude. Moving on to 3.75. These buffs are actually insane, genuinely. If he got these buffs in Season 2, he would have been top tier. And I actually do mean it. And this isn't just me being revisionist, I promise. So let's get into them. Wild Assault Hard Knockdown on Wall is gone, which Zato did use well, but also it was more so of an alternative to slumping until you build 50 to break with sword, as we've gone over, right? And it being present means other characters could do the same to you, and remember, wall break Koki is kind of Zato's whole thing. So it being gone is like, it's fine, right? His direct buffs are really big. Number 1, if Eddie is killed by a burst or a YRC, the gauge actually remembers where he was, like where his health was. So let's do sure, right? And then goes to where that is, and then he you know, in my opinion, this is a step in the right direction, but I kind of would have preferred, and I think it would have been easier to program if they just made it so that Eddie was in like white health recovery, like when you unsummon him after. But whatever, it's fine, right? I would like this to extend to DPs and reversal supers, because honestly, it feels like you get rewarded for being wrong too much on this type of stuff. Like, dude, really? Come on. And also, they said burst and YRC, right? This doesn't work if you cold burst Eddie. I'm 99.9% convinced that this is a bug. Okay, yeah, there you go. There's Eddie getting hit by Gold Burst and still dying. So their word means nothing. Blah, 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 right? But surely this gets fixed, right? Anyway, moving on. Eddie's movement speed forward has been increased by 33%, which is really big for quality of life, and it also makes a lot of like combos and setups more consistent. So setups where you do stuff like this, and then like move Eddie behind them are way better now. It also means you can do these types of combos a lot easier. Do these types of combos a lot easier. You see how I'm moving them over, right? And then it makes like just kind of like janky scramble situations or like stuff like that a lot easier. So like let's say they get hit by the first hit of Frog. Yeah, sure. But then you want to like run up and then, you know, cover it. So it makes that type of stuff a lot easier. So this is actually a really big buff. I would appreciate it if his... So obviously they didn't make his backward movement speed buffed because that would be kind of silly if he could shimmy you like that. But I kind of would like if his backward movement speed buff when he's behind them were to be sped up, because right now he loses that movement speed once he turns around, right? So he's slower here as opposed to going this way. And it makes these types of setups where you put him behind them a little janky and inconsistent. So quality of life, you know, I'd like if that changed, but I'll live if that's not the case. But I've been saving the best one for last. Pierce 1 is now a 20 frame move, which is insanity. I think a lot of the other applications of it are kind of overstated, but the actual big one is this combo works on standing now, which is insane because this is normally a crouching counter hit only combo. This is huge for his conversions. It's huge against characters like Happy Chaos, right? Or just any quarter circle character, right? So like you hit Happy Chaos doing steady aim, or you hit Faust throwing an item, or you hit Zato himself summoning, or you hit Asuka throwing a spell, right? All these types of situations, Zato would actually get pretty poor reward off of for hitting counter hit 2S, right? Like calling them out. Right? That type of stuff, right? Sorry. Okay, yeah. Zato would get pretty bad reward, all things considered, for calling those types of moves out. So him getting actual real reward off that when he has Eddie is a huge buff. It is actually like a massive game. I can't overstate how big this buff is. And then also, a lot of matchups like Ram, for example, where you're getting outspaced by these like really big far slashes and 5Hs. You can actually get reward off of it now, right? When before, it almost felt like not worth to go for this because you wouldn't really get anything off of it. And so instead, you would just throw yourself at them with 6P to beat these like standing moves. And then you try to actually stuff the... Like you do 6P to make them press crouching moves, and then you'd press 2S once you got them to do a crouching move. Honestly, if you ask me, this buff is a little cringe. Honestly, like if they gave him this buff in Season 2, I would have been a little bit upset because I actually care a lot about how fun it is to play against Zato too, but at this point, if Zato's this bad, he actually does need it, unfortunately. But of course, I will admit this buff a little cringe. Very notably, the Pierce juggle has not been fixed, and if you know what I mean by that, you know what I mean by that. I'm going to show an example. There are many characters in this game where the Pierce juggle is inconsistent or straight up doesn't work when catching backdash, for example, or just getting air hits in general. So let's show a character it is inconsistent on. Right, so this is not hitting his backdash, right? But if you're really fast, against some characters you can save it by clapping Pierce like that, right? However, there are some characters where this is not saved. Most annoying of which to me is Ino, personally. This is annoying to me for two reasons, right? So that's what Pierce looks like. And then that's what me trying to clap Pierce looks like. So this just doesn't work on her, right? Which is really, really annoying for two reasons. Number one, players love slamming backdash. But also, it means for situations like this, where you try and like check her hover, where most characters will get a really good combo for checking her hover, Zato gets nothing, right? Which is a really huge element in this matchup. But yeah, I don't know. This is like kind of a quality of life thing that I really wish would change because it only really applies to like, off the top of my head, like 4 or 5 characters where it like just doesn't work. It's less than 4 or 5 characters actually, but I think it's like Ino, Sol, Asuka are annoying and stuff like that, right? Slayer just doesn't work because his backdash is grounded, but whatever, right? Yeah, I don't know. Just quality of life, me complaining. Overall, I think an unnerfed Season 3 Zato with these buffs would actually still not be top tier just because of how bad the system is for him and also because every other character is getting buffed, right? And the goal of this video is to not make him top tier. I'm really emphasizing that. Yeah, the goal of this video is not to make Zato top tier. It's just to kind of make him like more than mid tier, right? Like I want him to be like pretty good, but something important to me is my favorite matchup in any fighting game is the Zato mirror, and if I enjoy the Zato mirror less, that's considered I would take that as an L. So I want to make Zato better again while still keeping him actually like interesting to play as and against. So what now, right? How I'm going to structure this is I'm going to talk about big changes and then small changes and then potential for the new move, right? But couple disclaimers. Number one, Arxis has only, in this game, only one time have they actually reverted buff/nerf, where they buffed Drone and it was the best move in the game, and then they nerfed it really hard, and now it's still one of the best moves in the game. But whatever, right? That change was so horrible that they admitted they were wrong, but I'm not going to expect them to admit that they're wrong. They're pretty stubborn, right? So yeah, no direct reversions to stuff. Another thing is, it is actually keeping the identity of the character is really important to me. So I'm not going to just say like, oh, give Zato a DP, right? Or like, oh, give him Bandit Revolver. or something really stupid like that, or give him chaos backdash, right? Like I'm good, bro, right? Before anyone's like, oh, you're begging for the entire world, like these are just some general like ideas for what you could do, right? While still, I'd say, keeping in line with the character identity. So first off, this one is gonna be a little spicy, and this is actually something that if you told me to do this in season 2, I would have swung at you because I would have been so mad. But let me preface it by saying a really big thing I do like about Zato is how much which hit you get matters, right? So it makes you really like, because like this hit doesn't matter, right? And like this hit doesn't really matter, but like this hit matters, right? Or like this hit matters, and we all know that this hit matters a lot, right? Or even better, like this hit, right? So that part is really interesting to me, not only because you kind of have to lead them to get hit by the big hits, right? Which is cool to me, but also on the hits where you don't convert, there are a lot more like situations you can build out, right? So let's say I'm doing this, and then I know they're gonna respect, so then I do something like this, right? Even though it's like blah blah fake all this, right? Like it's still good to do, and you have to actually vary your stuff instead of just, oh, I hit 2S, let me just do my combo wall break, right? Which to me is interesting, right? That being said, Zato is now the only character in the game that can never convert a mid-range S button. Baiken can on crouching, on standing she also is not able to. This is not the case for anybody else. Anybody else either got buffed, like Bedman, right, to be able to do this, or can use Wild Assault, like Testament, right? So it's just him, right? As much as I do hate this idea, they've kind of forced my hand. You could make 2S combo in Invite Hell. It would just look like this. They'd be full screen. Like this is not like a knockdown. This is not like a real, like if I make him mash like a reversal, like even like this, right? Like I can beat that, maybe, right? But if I want to like run up 2K or anything, like I'm dying to him mashing far slash on wake up, right? So this is not like a real knockdown. It's more so just something to get like, oh, I can get Eddie out, or because they increase the Eddie timer by so much, like he needs to be able to stall better, right? Because right now, this is pretty pathetic in terms of stalling. And I guess I might as well bring this up now because we're talking about the Eddie timer. The other option is having his gauge not freeze during hit stop while refilling. See how the gauge is frozen during hit stop here? That is not the case in older games, right? And so any boomer who's telling me, oh, it was 7 seconds long in the old games, blah, 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 like it legit, it filled up fat. Like I could do block strings and it would fill up. And because of that, it means just like making your opponent block 2S over and over again isn't actually like a good way to stall for Eddie, because during the 2S hit stop, the gauge is frozen. So you're not even actually accomplishing as much as people think you are. That being said, to my knowledge, no gauge in this game actually does fill during hit stop, so I don't think that this is a good option, even though it would be a lot simpler and it would make you not have to have this work, right? Because 2S has never comboed into Invite Hell in any other Guilty Gear game. However, Invite Hell in Exerd was the worst Invite Hell has been on block previously is 0, right? So right now, if you do 2S Invite Hell, right, and they get hit, you're -7, right? In Exerd, not only you would be stalling during the 2S hitting, but also this would be 0, right? And Exerd Zato is also bottom tier, and he sucks because he's 0, right? So I'm -7, bro. But in a lot of other versions, Invite Hell was actually +2, right? And stuff like that. So I understand this is actually a really, really big ask, but I feel like devs have kind of forced the hand a little bit here. And now there's 2 ways to make this happen. Number 1 is you make 2S level 3 to combo in Invite Hell, because Invite Hell is 18 startup, and level 3 2S would be 16 block stun, so 19 hit stun, right? And then the other option is you make Invite Hell 16 frames. So you might think making Invite Hell 16 frames is actually, because so, by the way, the goal here is for this to be as small of a buff as possible, because this is already crazy. So you might think that making Invite Hell faster is actually a smaller buff than making, or a bigger buff than making 2S level 3, but 2S level 3 is actually going to be really toxic because it would mean that this is much harder to escape, right, on block. So the actual more quote-unquote fair outcome is you make Invite Hell 16, and I have thought about it. It doesn't really affect too many other things. Like, it makes this a little more consistent on block, right? Because you can, like, run through it. And it makes far slash Invite Hell similar, right? And that's kind of about it. Like, it doesn't actually... And obviously, Invite Hell as a move in neutral is 2 frames faster. But also, they have made Leo's Fireball and Kai's Fireball less total duration, and they've made Gunflame faster. So I don't think this is even that out of line. the knockdown also wouldn't be too crazy, right? Like, if you look at 5H in by hell knockdown, it's the same thing where I was saying, you know, if I'm not getting real Oki off of this, right? Like, I'm not winning the game off this. This is just buying me a little bit more time to stall. Or I would, you know, now I'm just playing neutral with Eddie out, right? But I still have to make correct decisions that aren't just like, oh, hit him high or low or whatever, right? Like, I actually have to, like, play against my opponent and play the video game after hitting this, which is good because his 2S should not be an insanely high reward move. Like, I could just say, oh, yeah, just make the 2S, like, crouch and counter combo, like, make it work on normal hit, right? And then Zato is just breaking the wall off of 2S, normal hit 2S, just like, you know, Asuka and Chaos are. But, like, come on, bro. Like I said, I want to not hate Zato, so let's not do that. Some other ones are that his 2S is a good, like I said earlier, his 2S is a good move, but his far slash sucks. As somebody who presses Zato far slash probably more than anybody else, he has arguably the worst far slash in the game, or second worst, right? It is only 13 frames at max range. It is, I believe, minus 12 on block. Yeah, minus 12, which is terrible. It has a ton of recovery. If you backdash it, you can just punish it. So if Zato tries to chase your backdash with this move, and then the move sucks, so it doesn't hit your backdash, you just lose, right? Because it has so much recovery. So maybe buff his far slash, because they nerfed his 5P, right? So his 5P means that he's going to struggle more against fighting, like, smaller 2Ks, right? Like Souls 2K, for example, right? Like Souls 2K or his 2S, right? Which is 5P, used to be amazing against. But it also means he is going to struggle against stuff like Ram's pokes, right? Because he isn't able to, like, match his hitbox with her hurtbox. So I think buffing his far slash would help with that a little bit. So potentially, potential fixes for his far slash, I would say, include either giving it less recovery, give it a similar hurtbox buff to 2S. For example, his 2S used to lose to 5Ks around start, and his far slash still does lose to 5Ks around start. Either, I would say, hurtbox buff like 2S, less recovery, or maybe both. I'd say also maybe pushback so that this, like, far slash 5H and by hell works better so that he gets better burst punishes, but that's kind of a lot, right? So maybe not. Another big problem Zato has is against these types of moves, right? With oppose. So these types of moves, he can't always get a counter hit, and clap pierce is actually slower, so this won't even, like, combo, right? And if I try to punish with this, it often also won't combo, right? And if I run up 2H, Drunkard Shade won't cancel Eddie because I have to run too far. A suggestion I have is maybe make it so that the Drunkard Shade range where it would activate on oppose is better. Another potential one is if you are fast enough to counter hit, make Eddie stuck in hit stop for less time. There we go, right? So I think keeping Eddie stuck in hit stop this long for oppose is also pretty annoying because there are a lot of situations where Zato would like to be able to do stuff like this, and it does work on Ram 5H, and it does work on Nago 5H, for example, when Eddie feels like not misbehaving and doing stuff like that. But notable example is it does not work on Mistfinder, which feels pretty inconsistent to me because it seems like they want you to do these types of moves, right? Like Ram 5H, like Nago 5H, right? So it not happening on Mistfinder is pretty confusing to me, so let's show that. See, it doesn't punish, right? So I think maybe keeping Eddie stuck in hit stop for a little less long. This also would help him in matchups like Leo and stuff like that. Yeah, this is kind of, I'd say this applies to maybe only, like, honestly less than a third of the cast. This is a big versus Leo, Bridget, Ram, Nago, Johnny, Axel, Asuka, and I don't know who else. Yeah, okay, yeah, I think that's it for really big buffs. So let's move on to some smaller ones. I've been asking for this since literally day one of the game. I think Zato 2D should be -8. Basically, Zato is in a position right now where if he does do 2K2D, he gets punished by supers and DPs, right? His cancel options right? They're all going to lose. So he has to do this, right? Which is also counter hit punishable if they just press far slash, like a little bit after, right? So right now, doing anything against an opponent with 50 on block feels kind of impossible because you will end up in a situation where you can't bait their super without being counter hit punishable, which is miserable. So if they give his 2D literally 1 frame less of recovery, this wouldn't happen. I'm not saying, because for example, Ram 2D is probably the second worst 2D in the game because it has bad range, right? Just like Zato's, and doesn't work that much from a 2K, just like Zato's. But Ram 2D is level 3, right? I am not saying that you should make Zato GG level 3, because that would be really broken. Similar to why 2S level 3 would be really broken, right? Because you would be able to do stuff into Pierce easier, right? And this is actually really degen and broken with Ram, because she could do this, and you can't mash on it. You have to 6B it. Oh. There you go, right? So I think this is already too much for Ram, so I would never ask for it for Zato, right? That's asking too much. But literally just 1 frame less recovery, so that he doesn't... Like, his 2D is already hard enough to connect, so I think getting super punished by it is pretty silly. Potentially gives 5k a purpose. It's, like, by far the worst 5k in the game right now. And, like, I get it, Zato's moves are supposed to be bad, right? Because he's Zato. But, like, its only purpose right now is that it's a YRC safe low. But also the pushback on it is, like, worse than his 2k, right? Because they gave 2k as universally a pushback buff. It's still -2 on block, because Kai 5k is better on block and has a lot of active frames. His 5k is not the case. It's also slower than Kai 5k. So right now, IMO, it's mainly just combo filler. So I think giving it some kind of use would be nice. And then the last one is similar, like how we were talking about 6H earlier. I feel like if they aren't going to revert the wall damage change on 6H, they probably should on 2H. Because 2H and 6H are both 500 wall damage, so just giving him to keep corner, giving something to keep corner is probably nice. Again, all of these buffs probably not a good idea, but some assortment of these buffs, you know, maybe hopefully can lead devs in the right direction. I still would not want Zato to be winning the game off jabs, right? Which he doesn't. And I think that's cool that he doesn't, unlike most characters in this game. I think it's cool that he isn't winning the game off of hitting a 2S, unlike most characters in this game. Like, you have to decide which hits you're going to get. And obviously, if Zato could do that, while also having the rest of the buffs I'm asking for, he would be just as degen as Chaos, which we all hate Chaos, right? So, yeah, obviously, not that stuff is unreasonable, but hopefully this type of, like, these types of, like, quality of life buffs kind of explain where I'm coming from and show that I do want to keep, like, the character's identity intact while still making him, you know, not garbage. Alright, so here's the actual exciting part, right? The new move. So, we have been waiting forever for Zato's new move, and I would say he's probably the hardest character to give a new move to, both because he's so bad, but also because, like, his moveset, he already has a ton of moves. They all do a bunch of different things. So, I think that the most successful new moves have both, like, kind of solved a problem a character has while keeping their identity, like, intact, and also, like, giving you something to do that's kind of cool, right? So, for example, I think that the biggest success of a new move is Faust's Itemie, right? Because it makes his cancels on block better, it gives him a fake fireball, which is also cool, and then it gives you, you know, Itemie interactions, which are also interesting, right? Dolphin Hop, similarly, I think is really cool because it's, I mean, I don't know, like, it makes Mei have even, like, a little bit, not that she has a lot, right? But she has, like, a little bit of depth. She's still Mei, but, you know, they're trying. So I think that those types of moves are cool, and I think just giving a character, oh, this move is plus, is like Rock and like MLA are really lame. I'm not really a big fan of those moves. And I'm also not a fan of moves that will like completely fix a character's problems, like Anji. So I thought about what are situations with Zato that are kind of feel bad, right? To like be in, that you could potentially do something about. And the conclusion I came to is Eddie-less 2K2D feels pretty bad, right? Or, like, 2K2D on hit, rather. Right? Because look how long the Eddie gauge is, right? Your block string, like, if you do a full block string and your opponent isn't FDing or backdashing or anything, right? Right? You're doing this, and you do this, and you do this. And he's, like, a third of the way back, right? So, it definitely does not feel good to be in these situations. And also, any like type of situation you would go for after this on your own is not super rewarding, right? Obviously, because you're solo Zato. And you just, I don't know. Like, it has a lot of flaws, and in my opinion, as someone who has actually played against Season 3 Zato more than you guys think, it doesn't really feel good to play as or against. So, the reason I have Chaos on the screen is because he has this move. Asuka also has this move, and I think that Exhaustion is actually what you give to Zato. So, Exhaustion is actually kind of different from what I'm asking, because it's a move in plus R where you have to pay 25 meter, and when Eddie is out, you get more Eddie, like you pay the meter to get more Eddie gauge, right? It does not work when Eddie is dead, but the animation is cool. Basically, what I'm suggesting is you give Zato you use the exhaustion animation and you replace the 2-1-4-H input when enemy is dead, right? Because that's the summon input. And you give him something to do, right, in that situation. Like, you do 2K2 2-1-4-H, right? And you would do exhaustion. And then you would be still plus, but you wouldn't be able to get a safe jump or anything, right? Like, plus 12. Yeah. So something like that amount of duration, right? Because it's I believe like high 40s, like let's say 47, 48 in plus R, which is actually longer than Chaos Focus. And Chaos Focus also gives him a buff, right? And I'm not even saying exhaustion should fill the Eddie gauge by as much as Chaos Focus fills his gauge, but just like even like a good like 30% or something, so that you'd feel like you're doing something productive when you hit a 2K2D and you're able to just do exhaustion instead of like, okay, I'm gonna do this block string, like I'm just doing this to stall my opponent, you know. Oh wow, I'm fighting the strike throw where if he hits the strike, we're just doing the same song and dance again, right? I feel like the gameplay pattern is pretty boring, so I feel like both adding some urgency to it, but also like giving Zato something to do would be kind of cool. And also attaching it to the 2-1-4-H input means that you wouldn't have the thing in plus R where you do infinite block strings with exhaustion with Eddie out, because it's obviously a little much for Strive. And also probably why it costs 25 meter in that game, right? Like it wouldn't cost meter in this game because they don't have 25 meter options. But yeah, the other thing that's interesting about it, there are a lot of situations where you'd wall stick with something like Invite Hell, where you actually wouldn't be able to do exhaustion and then also still be able to wall break, right? Which is similar to Chaos Focus. Like, Chaos actually can't focus on every wall stick and then still break, which I actually think is, as much as I hate this character, I think that's a pretty interesting part of him, right? So those types of situations, also when you wall stick with something like Drunkard Shade, as you do 6H Drunkard Shade to wall stick, right? Because it's your max damage ender. Stuff like that would be interesting, right? And also, you know, it would give you something to do on those wall sticks, right? Because right now, when you wall stick with Zato, you just kind of do 6H, right? Which most resource characters, like, it's not like Faust will do an item eat, for example, on his wall stick, because that actually advances his win con, right? Because if you eat an item, you might get something good, and then you're able to throw it next round start, right? Or like Chaos will do Curse or Reload or something like that. Asuka will get mana back, do a spell, or not do a spell, draw a card, right? Something like that, or even do his super, right? His card super. So I think something like that to give Zato something to do when he's Eddie-less in these types of situations, so he doesn't feel like he's just kind of sitting there doing nothing, waiting, right? Like, it feels like both players are just kind of waiting for Eddie to come back, in a sense, and to me, that is pretty boring, and I personally think, if done properly, exhaustion is a decent solution to it. And also, like I said, I love the animation for it. It's funny. I've heard more than a couple suggestions about what new moves you should give Zato. I think Bandit Revolver type moves, or like Stun Dipper type moves, or like, even if we're not talking about, like, I don't mean them in, like, neutral skip senses, but just, like, a move to, like, give him a consistent, like, good knockdown off of jab. So if he were to, like, jab, like, Bandit Revolver and get a knock, like, midi 2k off of it, like, I think kind of ruins the entire point of the character, and I would really hate it if Zato were to turn into just another Strive character who just is converting off every hit. So I really do hope it's something more interesting like this. The move isn't out yet at the time of making this video, and we don't know a lot about it, but Chip's Tightrope looks like an interesting move to me, right? Because it gives... Similarly, it like gives Chip something to do that isn't just running at you and doing Rekka over and over again. So I really do hope that the new move is something along those lines, instead of just like something a lot more boring like Ramrock or MLA, right? Those are some ideas of how I would personally make Zato a little bit better. There's a lot of stuff that I cut because this video is already really long, like a lot of ideas. So if you guys want me to make a follow-up for this, or especially like if when the patch comes out and I'm inevitably really upset and grumpy about what they did to my boy, right? I could maybe make a follow-up to this if you guys want to see that. Let me know how much of a down player I am and how I'm asking for Zato to be the best fighting character of all time and how I want him to be top 1, blah, 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 when I explicitly said I don't want him to be top 1 and all that. Like, comment, subscribe if you like it. Thanks so much for listening to me yap about this character for God knows how long.